Testing, testing. Does that work? Testing, testing. I guess. I don't know if the mic works. That seems better. Oh, good, good. What's up, Chauncey? Just out there. What's good? Just give people like another 30-40 seconds to tune in, and we'll begin. I'm using a microphone. I hope that improves the sound quality. Oh. All right. Oh, thanks for the love, co-conspirator. All right. Since the first question was a really simple, where have I been? Actually, I just got back from Kansas City, Missouri. I was tending to some family issues, and everything's going well in Kansas City. And that's where I've been. That's why I've been off. And it was an unexpected trip because I just got back from Kansas City about a month ago. So I made a quick run to KC. So that's where I was last week. All last week. I was in the end of week before last. So I was in Kansas City tending to some family business. Sorry about that. It was unscheduled. I hadn't planned. I found out that I had to go about a day and a half before I left. So that's where I've been. Everyone that's inquiring about where I've been, and I'm sorry about that. Dr. Mingo in the background, eavesdropping on my business. Anyway, so if you're familiar with, so that's Nadira. That's where I've been. I was in Kansas City, Missouri. That's where I'm from. Don't look at my office. It's a mess, but that's okay because I am relocating to Wilmington, Delaware, so you can't judge me due to my messy office. Okay? That's the exemption. That's the new thing. I don't have to clean my house because I'm relocated. Lights are shining on my head. Wow. Like, what are you going to do? I don't have a lighting or makeup person. It's just me before I have dinner. Okay. Yeah, I might have to just go with this mic. I was hoping this is the mic I'm using. So if it goes in and out, let me know if you have sound issues, because I checked it before I went on, and so if it's going in and out, it could be a weak connection. But if I've tried it before, I can see it coming and going. But if it goes out again, we'll just go with the other mic. But I think the wire or the connection is a little bad. But anyway, please keep me abreast if the sound quality gets too janky. But I'm ready to begin. Thanks for inquiring about my whereabouts. I missed y'all. Hopefully some of y'all missed me. And starting next week, we'll be back on schedule. Until Jesus' birthday, there shouldn't be any more hiccups in the schedule up until Jesus' birthday. But then when Jesus' birthday come around, I don't know. Depends on how the station handles it and all of that. Okay, right now, definitely the cable. Yes, the cable. I have to jiggle the cable. Janky ass. I have to get another microphone. But anyway, hopefully, prayerfully. Do I have to talk right into the mic? I don't know. Okay, you say it's good now. So if anybody can ask me any questions about current events, historical events, ideology, philosophy, anything, even personal questions. If you need advice on your love life or your hate life or your afterlife, which is never going to happen, or your previous lives, which don't exist. If you have any questions about anything, this is the time and the opportunity to get my POV, my point of view. And I'm happy to share it. And I will humbly acknowledge if I don't know the answer, we can seek out the answer together, or we'll take notes and the next time, or maybe on the Bro.Diallo broadcast, because sometimes I get completely stumped, and I'll research the question and give you an answer either on the air or some other ways. But that's it. Nothing too formal, nothing too heavy. Okay, Robert C., have you seen Queen Slim? If so, thoughts? I have not seen Queen Slim, but I actually was talking this evening about doing a special show on just pop culture and media, exclusive, a YouTube show on breakdown, analysis, and critical review of media, because I've got a lot of questions about Harriet, which I've not seen. I don't really go to the movies like that, but I might be looking into, because I get a lot of like up-to-date media and pop cultures, because I don't see shit that's hot until months after it comes out. I'm not really up to date, but maybe I'll start making an effort. But I haven't seen Queen Slim, and I'm not even going to comment on the gossip and the ongoing debates until I do about Queen Slim. Same thing with the Harriet movie. I will see it, but it's going to take me a minute. You know, the bootleggers ain't out there like they used to be. Y'all didn't put the bootleggers out of business. So I have to wait to see till I see it. How far have I gotten in Gears 5? I've actually completed Gears 5. I got it on November 7th, my birthday, and I finished it just before I left town. But, you know, of course, I'm going to replay it a couple of times. And so I completed it. I'm not going to spoil it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've played all of the Gears, the 1 through 5. I played Gears of War all the way through, and even the prequel, Gears of War Judgment, I think, or whatever. So they had 1 prequel and 5 in the storyline. So I've played all the Gears of War, and I look forward to the next one. And I was happy with the gameplay in Gears 5, but a little disappointed in the story and how it played out. But, you know, I'm looking forward to the next installment of this storyline with Gears and 5. Okay. Chauncey asks, does wisdom suggest to engage in any of the ancestry DNA testing? Part of the hoax conspiracy or still an infancy stage? Henrietta lacks. I don't think that black people need DNA tests to reconnect us. I have never gotten one, and I wouldn't encourage people to do it because we don't have enough control. It's bad enough that they have our digital data. They track everything, and this is the information age. And when you get a DNA test, it's basically trivia. I remember people as late as far back as the late 90s, 98, 96, that were getting those DNA tests, sending off for those DNA tests. And one of the first brothers that I knew personally who did it, we used to organize in Brooklyn. And I asked him, what are you going to do with the information once you get it? And he said, it's just nice to know. And I'm like, okay, but let's say you Fulani, you Dinka, you out of Mali, you out of Senegal, you out of the Djibouti. When you get this information, what are you going to do with the information? Because you can look in the mirror, you can do the EYE test and look your ass in the mirror. You know, you can do the grandma test and go ask your grandma about your peoples. So there's many of ways. Archaeological, family history. I mean, my aunt had traced us all the way back to Africa, just doing genealogy, family history. I said, when you get this detailed, specific information about your African lineage, what are you going to do with it? And he didn't have any answer that really satisfied me to go through that. So no, they are definitely, you mentioned Henrietta Lacks. If you read the fine print on those DNA tests, anything that they find is pretty much their property. The information is yours, but the DNA code is theirs. So no, I would not encourage, I ain't got to look. And even like one time I was in in Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn, and this black Falasha Jew came up to me, speaking to me in Amharic or whatever, and I'm looking at him like, "What are you saying to me?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought you were from Ethiopia," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm from Kansas." And so we know where we from. Our people can tell us by looking at us. I've been told I look Fulani, I look Dinka, I look like I could be anywhere from Ghana to Senegal, just by, people. And we see people from the continent that look like somebody from around the way that used to steal our lunch money. So I think it's more of an ego thing, because I don't see anybody doing anything. And you might have somebody like, what's his name? Steve Harvey goes back to Africa to do some media fucking thing, and he's got an African dashiki on with his Greek letter organization printed on there. That kind of bullshit. To me, it's more of a vanity project. That's because, maybe you could tell me it's more of a vanity project. If you're going to go get a screening of your blood, you should be looking for like chronic disease vulnerabilities and shit, more so than where you're from. We know you're from Africa, and that's enough, at least for me. And every time I ask somebody, what are you doing this for? They never really have a satisfactory answer. So I would tell people, leave that shit alone. Africa's enough. It's the continent. And if you want to find a specific street on the continent, your specific tribe, what are you going to do with that? And then you ask yourself, what you going to do with the information? And then you ask yourself, what are these multinational corporations going to do with that information? To me, it's not a good trade-off. So I keep my shit. If they can still get my shit, but they're going to have to work for it. I'm not going to pay them to rob me. They're not going to send me to hell and charge me rent. Okay, let's who did I choose? In Gears 5, I've just played the campaign. What do I think about Trump granting? Okay, Trump is on a campaign to clear war criminals of their charges. And these war criminals that have raped children, have mutilated people. They were caught bringing home body parts of Iraqis, earlobes and lips and genitalia of Iraqis. Trump is taking these psychotic war criminals and granting them full pardons. And not only is he granting them pardons, he's reinstating them and reinstating their ranks. What I think is these guys are threats to white people. Most of these soldiers are white, if not all of them that I've seen so far are white. And they married to white people, they live amongst white people, and that is a white person problem. So he's sending these deranged, psychotic soldiers back into the white community. And I know we love to state statistics about black on black crime, but white on white violence follows the same pattern. Most white killers and white domestic murderers and white domestic violence people commit those crimes against other white people. So Trump is, with his white nationalism and his white pride, just like in general, it's going to boomerang, and it's ultimately going to hurt other white people. So when these white men go to kill their spouses or go on deranged shooting sprees, most of their victims will be other white people. So I would not be happy if deranged war criminals and deranged murderers and torturers and mutilators were re-released back into my community. I would not like that shit. On some pro-black shit, I would not like that. I would not want that. But white folks would rather, like I say all the time, white folks would rather live in a white hell than a black heaven. So yeah, it's some white pride shit. He's doing this to gin up his pride in the military. But the white military is not protecting white people. The white military is gutting the nation and then re-releasing these deranged, psychotic white men. I know y'all like to talk this race war stuff and believe that these white soldiers are going to go, but the majority of violence that is committed by skinheads and committed by these white race soldiers and committed by white veterans and white war criminals are committed against other white people here in the States. Now, when they're overseas, that's a different story. But most of these people have either been dishonorably discharged, and he's turning their dishonorable discharge into honorable discharge and giving them their benefits. And at the same time he's getting that, the Republican Party is gutting mental health services and intervention services. There was even this small fund in the Pentagon where they were giving these people, I don't know if you saw a story, you can look it up on Google, where this soldier This female soldier had PTSD, and they gave her a dog and a public relief or a relief dog, a service animal, to help her de-stress. And she took the dog out and mutilated and murdered the dog on camera. And they're even defunding that. So I think that these heroes, these war criminals that Trump is giving pardons to, and not just giving pardons to, he's reinstating their ranks, which means they'll have access to weapons and everything else that they have been denied access to after their convictions. They're going to be a plague on their own people. And their own people, they're celebrating it. They fight for our democracy. They're fighting for freedom. They were torturing children and murdering and raping Iraqis for our freedom. That's white folks' business, and it's going to double back. If I was a white-blooded, redneck, rural American, that shit would bother me. But as a black person living in a black community who moves amongst black people, it's a very low probability that those particular maniacs will be a problem in our community. So, yeah, it's more white power, white pride coming back to bite white people in the ass, or what Chalmers Johnson calls that blowback from white nationalism. Ultimately, white people always be the main people. The Nazis killed way more white folks than anybody else. And prior to the black codes, the number one victims of lynching prior to the black codes were other white folks. And even before the campaign of mass incarceration, white people have always outnumbered incarceration rates, outnumbered black incarceration rates. In fact, you cannot find any atrocities that white people commit against other people that they not at one time prior to or after started inflicting upon themselves. You know, so yeah, that's white folks' business. As Sweet Tea says, that's white folks' business. You know, not to say that we shouldn't take the necessary precautions to shield our communities, but ultimately, that's a white problem. And that's going to boomerang on white people. Just like most white problems. When white people try to attack someone else, it always comes back on them. There's a whole book Chalmers Johnson wrote called Blowback that talks about all the shit white people go out and try to do in the name of white pride. They came around and bit white folks in the ass. And just like these white people, they got those states that didn't want to expand Obamacare because they didn't want no nigger witch doctor health care. Remember, white people were marching in the streets with those witch doctor signs saying they didn't want Obamacare. And every single one of those southern states that refused to do the Medicare expansion to shit on Obamacare have higher rates of communicable diseases, higher rates of income. They just fucked themselves over being racist. Now, again, that don't mean we shouldn't fight racism and just wait for white racism to double back on white folks, because it harms us as well. But it's a different thing. Okay. Jim says, I'm adopted, so it's really a dice game. I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing any DNA. I'm African, period. Right on. I feel you. Giving our white folks. I'm saying white folks can get our DNA, but we ain't got to lay it out on a silver platter for them. Make them work for that shit. Get PS4. No, I ain't getting no PS. I'm an Xbox. Xbox forever. You know, I just don't mess with PlayStation. I ain't had a PS since they came out with the first PlayStation. Okay. Zahir asks, why did Tariq Nasheed switch to ADOS? Is he just an opportunist? Yes, that's where the money's at right now. ADOS, and we're going to see. It is my speculation. It is my prediction. After the 2020 election, ADOS will disappear. ADOS is nothing more than a black Tea Party. Remember when Obama was elected and the Tea Party emerged? Soon as Obama was out of office, the Tea Party faded. So these campaigns, ADOS is funding. You got New York Times writing articles on ADOS. You got Fox News. ADOS and their tangibles 2020 is to further dilute and disperse the black vote. That's all it is. It has gone from a principled, moral campaign to a political linchpin. It is a hustle. And Tariq Nasheed saw that white people, the Koch brothers and their what they call AstroTurf, it's an AstroTurf organization. And basically, an AstroTurf is a group that tries to pretend like it's a grassroots. And it's not truly grassroots. It's artificial or false grassroots. It's an AstroTurf movement. And so We already done busted Yvette and saw that she's on the payroll of right-wing conservative. Tariq will go with anybody who pays him. Tariq was a left progressive. He was in Michael Moore movies. He was in Michael Moore's Stupid White Men documentary and all that. So he goes with whoever pays him. I can make, if I had enough money, if I had a check tomorrow, I could have Tariq Nasheed come out as a Pan-Africanist. In fact, if you look at some of his Hidden Color documentaries, he has noted Pan-Africanists in the documentaries. So Tariq will dance to whatever the man paying him puts him on. So he can be a libertarian, he can be a foundational black ADOS, and I think that ADOS, just like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was running up on the stage, snatching the mic from Bernie Sanders. Black Lives Matter was all up into Hillary Clinton's face, and every night on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, Black Lives Matter was everywhere. After the election, yeah, you might have remnants of Black Lives Matter, but it ain't no more mainstream. And it's the same thing. You might have some people on the internet hooping and hollering, but you got ADOS people showing up on corporate media. And then they say tangible. If somebody doesn't support reparations, then don't vote for them. But they don't. And you notice how Black Lives Matter ran up and snatched the mic from Bernie, and they was hooping and hollering at Hillary, but they never ran up on Trump or any of the Democratic or any of the Republican primaries. They were just running up on Democrats. And here you have the same thing happening. It's another hustle. And so Tariq Nasheed is not just an opportunist, he's a parasitic opportunist. He will kill the host. So if he articulates support for your movement, you need to check your movement. You know, it's the law of attraction. If you're attracting fucking spineless fucking opportunistic motherfuckers like Tariq to your cause, you got to do something. Check it. I ain't saying abandon your movement, but check it, because you know it's some shit in there that's attracting flies. So to send money to you, you got to be by sticker. No, you can become a Patreon supporter. You can donate PayPal. You can do super chat. There's several ways to support our media efforts, and there will be more coming down the pipeline. And I appreciate everyone's support. I wouldn't be here without it. But no, there's more than one way. Part of town. Jim. Oh, sorry, my feed is jumping. Until they come to our part of town, we got to be ready for their asses when they do, invading our spaces to commit acts of harm and death. Yeah, but most of our harm is legal and paperwork. But yeah, that's absolutely true. We got to prepare for what we already know. It's not even like in our communities we got to prepare for the unknown. White people have been consistent in their harm. And you don't just prepare by arming yourself, because more doctors do more harm. Physicians do more harm. Bureaucrats and bankers do more harm in our community than white nationalist organizations and police even. But that's a whole nother thing we can get into if y'all want to. How do black people defend themselves collectively during the upcoming economic explosion? Well, it's kind of hard to say, because black people in the United States are in a perpetual state of economic crisis. Like where I'm living right now in my neighborhood, unemployment for black men between the ages of 16 and 25 is 50%. It's more than double Great Depression era. So, like Professor Mackey says, when white folks have a depression, we have a panic. Or the old common saying is when white folks catch an economic cold, we catch economic pneumonia. So we're already in economic crisis. The thing is that black people, we don't recognize it until white people go through it. So a dude could be struggling every fucking day of his life, having inadequate housing, lack of transportation, lack of adequate access to nutritious food, and just that's his norm. But then he'll turn on the TV and they'll be like, there's an economic crisis. And the brother will be like, oh shit, it's an economic crisis. When there's no appreciable change in his quality of life, but he'll start to have greater levels of anxiety because now white folks are suffering like you. You know, Like, I know black people drive, and when you get on those highway off ramps and you see black folks standing there playing drums for money or begging for money on the off ramp and think nothing of it. But then you pull off the off ramp and you see white people and white families standing there. You're like, oh shit, something's wrong. So it's kind of sad, but what the fuck left can they take from us? You know, going from 48% unemployment to 52% unemployment, the fuck. And we already got crisis we got violence, theft, antisocial behavior, lack of trust, lack of community cohesion, underfunded schools, inadequate health care. What the fuck more could happen to us? So if you ain't working now, if you ain't been organizing, people that just get woke, when there's when people are getting lower level dividends and return on their investments, you know, my community is already in an economic depression. And then there's a few middle-class black people that fall down to poverty of the masses. And then they want us all to panic when they suffer. So the way we defend it, we should already be in a state of emergency. We should already be in a state of revolution. We should already be practicing grassroots or ground up revolution. So how do we prepare? One of the ways we compare is to better educate and mobilize. I'm already fucking growing food. I've been trying to get I've opened 2 cooperatives here. I've been trying to get black folks to pool our resources and coordinate our efforts for independent, resilient defense, sustenance, localized production, localized distribution. I've been doing that shit long before the stock market, when the stock market is at peak or when the stock market bottoms out. I've been doing that shit. So maybe I really can't say when this happens, because we're in the midst of it. Black people's like, what's going to happen when the race war starts? Like, the fuck? The race war started in the 1400s. What the fuck are you talking about when the race war starts? That'd be like me and my wife talking about what are we going to do when we start family planning. My son is 18 years old. I mean, he's 17 going on 18. And we sit down at that moment to start family planning. We in the midst of the fucking shit. We in the midst of it. So I really don't know how to answer that question, because there is no upcoming economic implosion. We are in the midst of an economic implosion. So if you think, well, when Will Smith starts to lose points on his positions, when Will Smith has to give up a yacht, when Oprah Winfrey have to, sell off one of her mansions, that's when we panic. The economic implosion has been perpetual for African people. So the black people who are just now going into that, then I could say, well, if you're just now figuring out that black people are in economic crisis, welcome to the party, join the revolution. And in terms of we have to collectivize, your answer was embedded in your question. We have to collectivize everything. We have to learn cooperation, sharing, and planning. And we need a common resistance ideology of Pan-Africanism. Ideology, cooperation, pooling of resources, resistance, which we should have been doing long before the stock market said any fucking thing. There's some comments. I have to go through the comments to get to the questions. Maybe people will feel incensed when they take away their holidays and or religion. They can't really take away their holidays and religion, because when white folks exited the continent. Chauncey, how do you feel about public displays of court procedures? R. Kelly hearing guilty or innocent characterization are men effective to subvert our community from I don't really follow those things. I remember I was graduating high school during the whole OJ trial. I think that it's really a tragedy of justice. I don't think people learn anything from watching the procedures. I just think it's tabloid shit. I think we do more to watch civil litigation. How they fuck us up in mortgages, and I think it'd do better to watch debates on issues or philosophical debates or online lectures. I think people that are watching the R. Kelly trial are just there looking for salacious information. I don't think they're there for any type of intellectual stimulation or edification. I don't think that what do you say? Guilty or innocent, is it demonstrative of true characterization of our end or affected to subvert the community from predators? I'm not sure. If you could reword that question, I'm not sure I follow it, Chauncey. What foods did you start to grow? I actually went online because I was farming in Missouri, which is a different temperate zone than Chicago, which I didn't really think about because we're both in the Midwest, but just being those few, you know, longitudinal lines, or is it latitude? Latitudinal lines north. It's a lot different environment. So I grow a lot of hardy greens, kale, spinach, and then it's seasonal. I always start off the season. I plant after the first throw. I plant my melons and my pumpkins and shit, because those takes all fucking season. You start that shit in the spring and you be lucky to harvest by the fall, the early fall or the late summer. But the hardy greens, radishes, the tubers, beets, herbs don't really grow too well. I grow those inside because my herbs always tend to wither. They get a good start, but if you don't harvest that shit away, asparagus grows. It takes a while for it to get a foothold, but you can just reharvest that asparagus that we have. We get a ton of asparagus. And then as the time goes on, if you want to start to do more like strawberries and the berries and shit, that's late season, late spring, early summer. But any of the hardy green vegetables will grow. Sometimes I grow squash, but not too much of it because I don't eat a lot of squash. But just pretty much here in Chicago, you can grow anything. It's really good for growing if you got quality soil. But if you're not in the Chicago, if you're like in Missouri or New York, you have to check your almanac, real talk, because I'm just surprised. If I went up to Detroit, then my grow season, what I can plant and when, would be different than being here in Chicago. If I went back to Missouri or went back to Kansas City, I'd have to grow some different shit and plant different season. I'm still learning. This will be my 6th year farming in Chicago, and I still learn every year. I put this in too early. I harvested this too late. So you have to check. I couldn't find grow space in New York. I didn't grow when I was in New York because wasn't no space. I wasn't really plugged into it. We got more open land. Missouri, we had 17 acres in Bonner Springs, Missouri, and we had 2 plots within the city limits. So, yeah. But holler at me offline. We can go online and search that together. I can't tell you about New York specific. Opinion on Byron Allen and Colin Kaepernick. I think it is offensive to me that Byron Allen wants to rally black people. A lot of wealthy blacks, when they up here, they're self-made. But when the system fucking attacks them, it's about us. It's about them when they doing well, and it's about us when they struggle. Michael Jackson pulled that shit on them, but y'all keep letting them get away with it. Same thing with Bill Cosby. So I'm like, if we can't rise with you, don't try to ride with us. And Byron Allen has been around for decades. He's been a public figure, active for decades. I went and checked Byron Allen out when he made his call and said, it's not about me and it's about the people. I looked into the charities that he supports, the different causes that he spoke out on. Didn't have shit to do with black folks. And the problem is black people are in perpetual fucking crisis. Just like when Carl asked me about economics, we're in perpetual crisis. So there's never an era where there's not some cause or issues that we couldn't use a public or powerful voice in. So this lawsuit is about Byron Allen. And a lot of these motherfuckers are so egocentric. They think if I'm living good, then we doing good. Obama has that same fucking disease. We don't hear from Obama now. When Obama needed our votes, he was there. And if they had tried to impeach Obama or anything, even Clarence Thomas, remember when they were trying to snatch away his during his confirmation hearing, Clarence Thomas was the blackest motherfucker in the world, talking about high-tech lynching. Racism was real as fuck when Clarence Thomas was being exposed by Anita Hill. It was all about racism. Now that the motherfucker's on the court, racism is nothing but a figment of niggas' imagination. So Byron Allen is running that same fucking hustle. That nigga was in lily-like white land, living high on the motherfucking hog, and rubbing elbows with all these wealthy white people with no fucking problems. And the way you tell it is the motherfucker's in it for a payoff, because AT&T paid his ass off. AT&T was as racist, if not more racist, than Comcast. But when they paid off Byron Allen and they made concessions, because if a dude comes to me and is racist, and I know somebody in a position of power is racist, and they give me some money, and I stop talking about their racism, they didn't stop being racist because they paid me some fucking money. So why did he not talk? It's just Comcast now. Comcast is the only racist conglomerate right now, because he had 3 lawsuits going. 2 of the people paid it off, and Comcast said, nah, you ain't gonna shake me down. Comcast was like, look, I got minority, Latino, woman, and black broadcasters. And I think that Comcast gonna win that fucking case. Even if Byron Allen wins in the court of public opinion, he's gonna lose that shit. And then Judge Joe Brown came out and said Byron Allen was known for cutting other black people off at the knees. He was known for cutting other black people off at the knees and giving black people shady ass fucking contracts. Now he want to cry wolf. I don't support capitalists. I don't support black capitalists. Black capitalist success is not black success. Read E. Franklin Frazier's Black Bourgeoisie. Read Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson said there were wealthy black plantation owners during the Civil War, and every single wealthy black plantation owner fought on the side of the Confederacy to keep black people in chains. There's 2 books, Dirty Little Secrets, volume 1 and 2. I think he's got a 3rd volume. I haven't read that. But the first 2 volumes, he talks about wealthy black people have never represented. You can't get rich off of this revolution shit. All the greatest black revolution, from Kwame Nkrumah to Kwame Ture to Malcolm X to Dr. King. Even you can't even be a sincere reformist like Dr. King. So I do not support Byron Allen. My position is I'm indifferent. Before I could support Byron Allen would have to make a public statement acknowledging the fact that he has failed us in the past, that he has revised his ideology and his position, and that he will make a commitment that the resources that he gains from this lawsuit will be committed to black liberation and black empowerment. I ain't saying there's no redemption for him, but fuck you and fuck your money and fuck your lawsuit. You know, unless you on some Bob Marley shit. Bob Marley and Fela Kuti took their fame and took their resources and funded black anti-colonial struggle from Nigeria to Zimbabwe. When they were at the height of their celebrity, when the white folks was giving them every award they could pull out their ass, they stood for us and with us. So did Muhammad Ali. They didn't wait to fall off or wait to get in trouble to be black. They was black when shit was good. And if you black when shit is going well for you, then you can be black when shit goes hard for you, and I'll support you. As far as Colin Kaepernick, I commend Colin Kaepernick for what he did. And people distort what Colin Kaepernick did. Colin Kaepernick took a symbolic stand. And a symbolic stand is relevant, it's necessary, and we should show our fucking appreciation for it. And I think we should boycott the NFL. He forced them to show their hand. They were able to be background racist. They were able to be institutional racist. But Colin Kaepernick forced the NFL to be institutionally and overtly racist. He forced them to show their hand. And now, as a quarterback, when Colin Kaepernick was like, I'm going to do this minor symbolic gesture. And it was a minor symbolic gesture. He's not a boule puppet. That's not true. He did a minor symbolic. Somebody said Kaepernick is a boule puppet. No, he's not. He's just a fucking pro athlete. He's a pro athlete who made a minor symbolic gesture. He's not a black leader, which he doesn't claim to be. He's not a savior, which he doesn't claim to be. He stood on, he said, these are my personal convictions. I see this happening. And I do this gesture. And now, like the quarterback does, the ball's in our fucking court. An individual made a gesture. An institution responded. And now, we as a collective, I think that we have fell short. Now, me, I never fuck with the NBA, NFL, none of that shit. But for you black men who watch the NFL, and a lot of people want to dismiss Kaepernick so that they can comfortably watch those black men chase balls. Because if I can say Kaepernick's fake, Kaepernick's boule, so I can sit here and be disrespected to my fucking face. When the president says, tell those sons of bitches. And when the NFL say, niggas, y'all stay in the locker room. If you got a problem with what's going on here, stay your ass in the locker room. He forced all that shit to the surface. That's all Kaepernick did, was force shit to the surface. He forced the oppressor to show his hand. He didn't stop oppression. He didn't end oppression. He didn't redirect oppression. All he did was put them in a position where they could no longer pretend. That's all he did. And after that, it's for us to step up and say what we're going to do or won't do about it. And what we decided to do, I see more people attacking fucking Kaepernick than attacking the NFL. I see more people attacking and demeaning Kaepernick than Trump, who said, every black NFL, you a son of a bitch. Tell those sons of bitches to stand for the anthem. And those sons of bitches stood for the anthem. Because even if I was indifferent, if I was in the NFL after Trump said son of a bitch stand, I'm not, my mama's not a bitch. So I'm not standing for shit. And I'm not standing in the locker room. Every fucking NFL player chasing balls right now is fucking disrespecting themselves. Every black man watching the NFL is disrespecting himself. And you can say whatever you want about Kaepernick being abusive. He ain't really black. He fucking put all of you motherfuckers. He made every black man involved with the NFL as a fan or a player or agent or whatever. He made all of y'all say, hey, I'm part of an overtly white nationalist racist thing that doesn't even have the fundamental basic respect of the black men who carry this shit on their back. Carry it on their back. Use y'all like freaking stock horses. And you're like, listen, I'll beat your mule. I'll pull the wagon, but at least let me wear some horseshoes. Nope. At least give me some oats. Nope. Pull the wagon with no respect. I'm not even gonna pretend to give a fuck about y'all niggas. Chase the ball. After you're done chasing the ball, get off my court. Get out of town before sundown. So yeah, Kaepernick exposed y'all, and that's why you'll find people saying shit. Kaepernick's not really black. Kaepernick ain't no savior. Everybody want to diss Kaepernick. Kaepernick at this point is fucking irrelevant. Kaepernick is irrelevant. If I come tomorrow and I'm like, I got evidence showing that the black church or the Democratic Party, I got evidence showing you exposing the Democratic Party. And then you go, Diallo, this is a fucking no more point. Can we say with absolute definitive proof the NFL has no respect for black fans, black players, or black people in general? They have open disregard. The NFL is aligned with the evangelical, right-wing, Republican, overtly racist institution. The NFL is jingoistic and nationalistic and militaristic. And they can't even pretend. I don't care how many times Beyonce gets up there and gyrates at the halftime show or how many other black minstrel entertainers they get. They are exposed. Kaepernick, I appreciate what Kaepernick did because he gave y'all niggas nowhere to hide, and y'all mad at Kaepernick and not even mad at the NFL. Y'all mad at Kaepernick because now y'all can't sit there, eat them nasty ass chicken wings, paint your faces, and fucking hoop and holler when one of them fucking ball chasers runs the ball in. Now you have to sit there and be like, damn, I'm entertained by this shit. And I'm Kaepernick boule. So what if he's boule? Who cares if Kaepernick is a reptile? What did he do? All Kaepernick did was force the NFL to articulate without question its true allegiances. They used to pander to black people. So yeah, it is. $40 million slave. Read $40 million slave. Laid it all out before Kaepernick was born, or before Kaepernick ever was in grade school when he was a child. $40 million slave laid all this shit out. It kind of annoys me. I see more people attacking Kaepernick than attacking Trump. More black men. And yes, I say black men because, yeah, there's a few women. Most of the sisters that watch that shit only do it because their husbands got it on. My sister watches the NFL because my brother-in-law watches. But it's mostly us black men. I'm telling you, how you fucking respect yourself watching that shit. And there's another thing, one more thing. You got all this, you got the Arena League, you got your neighborhood, you got college football. If you love football, if you bleed football, there's at least a dozen other options for you to consume football outside of the NFL. And let me tell you something else. Not only the NFL owners, now they call them managers, they got a new name. They don't call them owners anymore. But now the NFL owners, the NFL promoters, and the larger society, and even people overseas, brothers and sisters in Africa and the Caribbean, who hate that we call it football, because to them football is good. The whole fucking world is watching us on this issue. And saw y'all black men bitch out. You sons of bitches. That's what Trump calls you that. And just principalities alone. Principalities alone is like, I don't even agree with Kaepernick, but I mean, goddamn. I can't watch the NFL. And I know some black men, some affluent black men, some wealthy black men, the kind of black men that got the fucking arena that sit up in the bubble and shit, that go to the Super Bowl, that said, I ain't going to that shit. Ain't no way you could fuck with it. Fuck the NFL. And I tell you, I was just in Kansas City with my people, my uncles, my brother-in-law. I tell them all. I see my own family talking about the Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs, promoting that shit online. Let me tell you something. If you're a black man, at least, whatever I mean, if I see you fucking with the NFL, I've lost some respect for you. Not all respect, depending, but I've lost a lot of fucking respect for you. And if you're going to watch it, go into the basement, do it like you do your porn. Just do it in secret. Don't promote it in the world. And when somebody asks you about it, act shocked. Huh? Porn? Where? Where you get porn at? Internet porn? I never heard of it. At least, man, come on. We know how to fake the funk. We fake the funk on everything else. Shit, bootleg that shit. What are my political beliefs on Pan-Africanism for community garden? I think community gardening and communal gardening is necessary, but I think that sometimes being part of the gardening community, having a garden and communing with the gardening community here on the south side of Chicago, sometimes people overplay what that means. From a Pan-African perspective, we have to not just, gardens are not going to save us. We have to take over food production. We have to de-industrialize and de-commodify food production. So gardening is great. It's a way to come together. It's a way to learn. It's a way to bond in your community. But I don't like when people overstate, like, yeah, we're going to feed ourselves. A garden, every garden on the south side of Chicago. I've been to dozens of gardens all over this city. I've set up a few myself. That's not adequate. If we really want to talk about food independence, we got to go all the way to Southern Illinois. We got to go to the continent, the Caribbean, reforestation, you know what I'm saying? Permaculture. So gardening is a good step. I've used gardening to create bonds. I've used gardening to help young people to reconnect with the land, promote veganism, promote sustainability and the concepts and ideas of sustainability. But some people come to that, oh, I got a garden. We got an ongoing black community garden. That's it. Watch out, white man. I got a garden. So I think it's necessary, but don't overstate its relevance or its value or even its impact. It has a lot of good opportunities there, and there's a lot of good things there. But we need to get back to nationalist food production, permaculture, deindustrialization, veganism. So there's a lot. Community garden should be one tactic and one component of a much larger food movement. It shouldn't be the be all end all. I find too many people, once they got a garden up and going, you can't get them to do shit else. And whenever you talk to them, all they want to do is talk garden. Knowing damn well if shit fell apart, they ain't even got a slingshot to defend the garden. So, from a Pan-African perspective, if you have space to grow, grow. If you have an opportunity to grow, grow. And make sure that's part of a larger agenda. An economic, a political, a militarist, an ideological, and academic should be one component, one piece of the puzzle. like I said, and I ain't gonna say no names, but a lot of you cats think y'all get a garden up and going, and I can't get y'all to do shit else. If it ain't garden related, you don't want to fuck with it. And that's weird to me. Weird, you know. And I'm hella proud of my garden. Hella proud. It's not even my garden, a bee garden. You know, shout out to the Hellspring Citizens. They've allowed us on that land 5 years. Next year will be our 6th year growing. Shout out to them with all the ups and downs. But a lot of times people do this one thing, and it's a good thing. And even if food production is going to be your thing, you got to constantly innovate. You got to prepare for climate change. You got to prepare for marauders and vandals. You got to prepare for various types of food contamination. You know, you got to be dynamic. You got to do it in a revolutionary. You got to be prepared for any, and you got to develop your distribution and processing network. You know. And I know it's hard because we want victories. We like to be able to say we did something, but you know, until we fully liberate it, none of us have done enough. Dolly CK, I don't know who that is. Haven't watched the NFL in 3 years. And we love football. Shout out to Little Miss Chocolate. Hasn't watched the NFL in 3 years. And like I said, you got high school, you got college, you got like how many divisions in college? You even got arena football. I had a homeboy whose brother played arena football. There's other football that ain't connected to the NFL that you can watch a black man get brain damage in many ways. There's other opportunities to watch these black men develop brain damage for your entertainment without going through the NFL. So what does it mean about our ability to have true revolutions if we can't get black folks to put the remote down with blatant disrespect from the NFL? I think our prospects for revolution are still very good. You have to understand that no revolution ever started. The Chinese revolution with Mao Zedong started with 25 people. So my prospects for revolution don't ever rest on the masses. Look at the Menshevik Party in the Russian Revolution. Look at Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese Viet Cong guerrilla uprising. Look at the Bolivarian Revolution. If you study revolution never starts off as the masses. But because white people are losing, the capitalism is losing legitimacy amongst white people. White nationalism is losing legitimacy. Donald Trump every day is doing harm to white nationalism and the concepts of white supremacy. There's like, wait, these people aren't supreme. Donald Trump is a eugenicist. He believes that he has supreme DNA as we watch his body melt on national TV and his brain deteriorate. But he thinks he's superior inbreeding with Melania, molesting and inbreeding with Melania. And you notice you never see Barron Trump because Barron Trump ain't together up there. And I ain't trying to diss a child, but fuck Barron Trump anyway, class enemy. So you're never going to have. And the way we have more people join our movement is we have to have infrastructure, resources, and consistency in order to reward people who cooperate with our revolution and to sanction people who violate our revolution. So my problem is I never critique the masses when I'm dealing with revolution. I expect the masses to function as the masses, and the masses have a vital role. Mao said the revolutionary is the fish and the masses are the water. So my problem is with black revolutionaries. If you're not a revolutionary, I don't critique you on revolutionary ground. If you come to me and say I'm a Christian, then I critique you according to your adherence to Christian dogma. If you're a revolutionary, then I critique you. If you be like I'm apolitical, then I critique you on the masses. Everybody got their own yardstick to live up to. My problem is black revolutionaries are too fucking reactionary. And you give me a dozen dedicated revolutionaries in the city of Chicago can get more done than a million of the masses. So my problem is not that the masses still watch the NFL. My problem is that we who are intelligent and committed enough to not watch NFL, what do we do next? I mean, I set up the Nubians for Literacy, NFL, and say all the resources and energy that we will save by watching the NFL or divesting from the NFL, the time and resources, we should put that into academic development and reinstituting an African academic culture. And I don't know, one day I'll tell the story of how that shit imploded or how I'm back at the drawing board for that. So I think black people have really good prospects for a revolution. And how do I know? Because black people The world over, we're still under heavy surveillance, and we're still under heavy levels of indoctrination, and they're still deliberately working to deny us resources. And if we weren't a threat, they wouldn't be wasting that time. They understood. The thing is, white people understand, or the white elites understand our threat better than we do. They understand our potential more than we do. Yeah, you got to sweet tea. If you're doing urban gardening, you got to test your soil. There are some of these. When I was in Missouri, we sent off our soil samples to the University of Lincoln University, and they had their students test our soil for free. So you can. I haven't done that yet because we don't garden in the ground here. Our edibles, we grow gourds in the ground and pumpkins in the ground, but food that we have raised beds and we make our own soil. But yes, if you are gardening in a city, especially that used to be an industrial city like Chicago or New York, you definitely have to test your soil for what's in there. And even if you don't have the money to buy your own soil, there are crops that you can plant, like hemp, but other crops, legal crops that you can plant that will fix the toxins or absorb the toxins in the soil, and you can pull those up and dispose of those in ways to start to purify your soil. But yeah, maybe we'll start doing a whole video on soil neutralization or soil purification. There's a lot of static. People getting static. How do you believe in continental drift but not evolution? Yeah, tectonic plates. Notice how whenever God wants to punish us with an earthquake, He always goes along the tectonic plates to punish us. Oh God, we're gonna mic court. I'm gonna put this. If I have one more problem with this damn mic court, I'm just snatch it out like Africa does. Do you think Kaepernick sold out when he signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Nike? I don't think Kaepernick sold out because he never bought in. Kaepernick is a liberal. He's not a revolutionary. He's not a radical. So I think that you don't have to be a radical to be anti-police brutality. So I don't think he sold out. I think it was unfortunate because I thought that Kaepernick was cultivating his consciousness. I thought that Kaepernick was going from being a liberal and making a liberal symbolic gesture to maybe becoming a radical because he was wearing the aesthetics of radicalism. So when he was evoking Fred Hampton and Malcolm X, I thought maybe he was developing. But when he signed that deal with Nike, I saw that he's going to remain liberal. What Kaepernick wants are liberal reforms. He doesn't want to overthrow the system. He wants to improve the system, which in itself is something we can commend him with, but he has to be told it's not adequate. So I don't think he sold out, and I don't think that it diminishes or takes away from what he did, what he actually did. So when liberals do these liberal things, some liberals are noble, or their heart is in the right place, like Kaepernick, and some liberals are pernicious, like Obama. So I think he is for lack of a better term, a naive liberal, but I wouldn't say, oh, he sold out, because I wouldn't have expected him to move different. I think he's a liberal reformer. And liberal reform, even though a lot of us get relief, I mean, liberal reform allowed for me to have food stamps, allow for me to have Section 8. Liberal reforms allows for us to get Medicaid. So I'm not against liberal reform. I think if you were in a position to get any of that shit, get it. Well, understand that's not going to solve the problems. A lot of times we need radical revolution, not liberal reform. So I don't think he sold out because I don't think he ever came out against capitalism. He said he's against police brutality. He's against the lack of accountability that police and white people face when they do harm to us. That's not really a radical position. There's a lot of white people. There's even some Republicans and conservatives that hold that position. You know, so no, I don't think I think it's consistent. That's why we can, you know, do the little clap when a liberal person stands up and does good. Say good for you, liberal. And when a liberal fucks up, we can call him out like that's fucked up. And that's the problem with liberalism. So I don't think he sold out because he never really is consistent. And like I said, he did do us a service. But now he's the quarterback. He handed us the ball. Are we going to run with the ball and take it to the next level? The small awakening that he gave to the community, the exposing the NFL, what can we do with that? That's why Chairman Fred Hampton said it's up to our job to raise the contradiction. We got to raise the contradiction. So Kaepernick's expose it, then we take that and we capture it and take it to a next level. Say, hey, how do we go from expose the NFL, boycott the NFL, to overthrow capitalism? So some people that are here expose the racism of the NFL. Some people are here boycott the NFL. Some people here is like, man, that's just one small microcosm of the larger system of racism, white domination, and capitalism. How do we get people all the way over here? That's our job. That's not Kaepernick's job. And hell, maybe even we can bring Kaepernick over. But, you know, let's not try to get blood from this turnip. Let the turnip be a turnip. Let's build on what he did, not just condemn it. Okay, Cheka asks, how can we get Africans, black churches, organizations there to talk about and do something about climate change? Well, let's just say, number one, Africans on the continent, they're living it. Africa is under the throes from fire to drought, starvation, food insecurity. So Africans on the continent. Africans of the diaspora in Europe and in the so-called first world, you just got to do ongoing education and exposure. And sometimes you got to fucking put it in a package that they can consume. We had a vegan restaurant and we had an opportunity to do outreach. We had a vegan catering company and we would go there and we would use veganism and conscious eating to talk about climate change. So you meet people through partying, you can throw ecological partying, just whatever means of media and ways people are entertained or stimulated, you inject that with education about climate change. As far as the churches, what you can do is in the Christian community, there is this movement called creation care. And black Christians, just like black Christians follow white Christians. Whatever the white Christians do, whether they become right-wing, evangelical, or progressive, black Christians, just like the black people that follow the white man into Christianity, when they get on that Christianity bus, wherever the white man is at. So what you can do, if you're in the church or you're connected, you can start promoting creation care within the church. A lot of these unconscious black people, all you have to do is show them legitimate, progressive white people are doing it, and then the brainwashed Negroes will do it. As far as conscious black people, you should just be able to give them the documentation and the evidence. And that should be enough if you're a conscious black person. If you're not a conscious black person and you want to do some effort of manipulation to move them, creation care, and other elements, you have a lot of celebrities going vegan and going green and sustainability to start to promote those celebrities and those ideas to do it. So, but if they're already conscious, outside of the United States, you'd be surprised. A lot of black people, South Africa, Kenya, Jamaica, they're well aware of this shit because they are on the front lines of the climate collapse. And a lot of climate refugees already know it. So a lot of times, because we don't have time, is not on our side, you just have to use means and methods of mass manipulation and mass make sustainability sexy. I hate to say it, but that's what you have to do. Okay, Adolfo, hey, what's up? Long time, Adolfo. Do you know how to effective cease it was in stopping interpersonal violence? It's funny because my wife just did an evaluation of Ceasefire, one of their programs, and she helped to secure. Actually, she and I, but we, they do play a role. But when you want to address something, I'm not sure of the measure. Ceasefire does help to prevent, reduce, violence, to stop acts of interpersonal violence, to reduce levels of interpersonal violence, and also they help people to heal or process who've been exposed or the victim of interpersonal violence. I personally have talked to guys who had gone through violence intervention and would be either dead or in prison right now if not for ceasefire. So the program actually works. And a lot of people aren't cool with the program because they use a lot of peer-to-peer type programs where the guys aren't polished and articulate. So they can't go and write up a report, or they don't publish in academic journals. So a lot of their work goes under the radar. But living and dwelling here on the south side of Chicago and having two sons live and move through this community, I think that they do good work and that they do prevent. There are some people who are alive today that wouldn't be alive if not for ceasefire. And there are people who are free and among us and in the community today who would be in prison for committing acts of interpersonal violence if not for ceasefire. But as far as the measure in terms of how much, when the problem is their reach is quite limited. Their funding is depending on white people. And the dominant political and economic forces in this city need to drive black people out of the city, to dilute our political strength and to get hold of very valuable lakefront and urban property for the ongoing gentrification campaign. So due to inadequate funding, inadequate support, inadequate reporting, they don't do as much as they could. And I have to say this, there are some people within the ceasefire community that are corrupt and poverty pimping and getting paid off of misery. And you have some sincere people, the ones who really don't make that much money or have that much authority but want to do something positive, that do it. But the scale of the disruption and violence versus the scale of the response is inadequate. They need so much more. And again, it's more of a reformist and reactionary group, and it's not really so. People come out of that group reducing violence, but they don't really come out of it with a higher consciousness or a changed consciousness. They just come out. They just give oppressed black. You got an oppressed black person, and they want to commit it. They lash out violence. Then you take this oppressed black person and you give them a different coping mechanism, and you give them less violent means of processing and coping with their condition. They're still oppressed. Both of these people are still oppressed. And ceasefire does not work to end oppression. Just give black folks better coping mechanisms or non-violent or least personally and least destructive means. Is that a win? In the long run, not really. In the short run, yes. So it's kind of hard to measure that. Even though I support and think people should support those efforts, if I was involved with ceasefire, it would be my obligation to radicalize. Like when I was working with Green Teens or One Summer of Chicago and the other programs in this city, as I was doing the standard procedures and carrying out my duties, I was also working diligently to inject militancy and radicalism and radicalize the institution and radicalize the people within the institution, both the service providers and the service thing. But I'm happy that they're here. I just wish after operating in this city for so long, they should be stepping it up. But better than nothing. What are your thoughts on... I haven't seen the Harriet movie, so I can't really speak on the Harriet movie. Me, I wait till shit comes out. I don't go to the movie theaters. I kind of let shit find me. I don't go see movies. Movies come to see me, really. So I'm always late to see shit, which is kind of good, because by the time I do speak on it, all the controversy will be over, and I can speak on it after everybody else all the hype has died down, and I can talk in a quiet room myself, but it's still a quiet room. So Joshua McCoy asked, should we just burn it all down, start over? No, you can't start all over. Even if you burned it all down, when you burn it down, the toxic fumes from the fire are still, you have to deal with it. So I don't think you should burn it down. And the reason why you shouldn't burn it down because there are a lot of our resources embedded in the system and a lot of our people embedded in the system. So you will be destroying our resources and you will be destroying a lot of our people. And number two, if you just wanted to burn it all down, all you got to do is put your hands up and step back, because it's self-immolating. This is an apocalyptic system. It's doomed before it got started. I say we should dismantle it. We should consciously, deliberately, and systematically dismantle it. And we should discard elements of it that shouldn't be there. But not get rid of all of it. And there really is no starting over, because history is a cycle. It's not a end of, like, white people, they had this concept of the end of history, meaning that this is the apex. But our people understood life is a cycle. It's not your life ends, your life starts and ends, and then another life starts and ends. Every life feeds into the next life. Every system feeds into every other system. So from a holistic point of view, there's no such thing as starting over. There's only the continuum. So I say we dismantle the systems and institutions, but we don't abandon everything. There are certain things black people don't have a taste for, like democracy and statecraft. And all that stuff and voting in it. We started democracy. We started statecraft. We are the people who started bureaucracy and division of labor. We are the people who started markets. So we ain't got to burn down markets, burn down statecraft, democracy, industry. We just need to humanize it, Africanize it, ecologicalize it. So no, I don't believe in burning it down and starting over. I believe in dismantling and reconstruction. And it might be a semantic game, but it's now also in terms of paradigm. So no, that's not my philosophy or what I advocate. Joshua asks, how many people would it take minimum to make a difference? To be honest with you, I would say, depending if you want to do regional or local. Let's start with local on a city scale. In a city like Chicago, if you could get a dozen people who cooperate, pool their resources, and hold to an agenda, you can make a serious impact. On a regional level, let's say Midwest, East Coast, South, you're going to lead at least 150 people. On a national level, 300 people can transform the black community. But it takes a level, because you got a lot of people. This is where the problem you run into with this pro-blackness and black revolution. There are a lot of people doing what they want to do, not doing what needs to be done. And I'm not saying their heart isn't in the right place, but a lot of people come into the black revolution to exercise their freedom, not to secure liberation. So you have somebody who's black and they're like, well, I used to just be a black person living my life, and now I'm woke. And so what does woke mean? I get to express myself. I get to wear my hair the way I want. I get to talk the way I want. I get to eat a whole different food. I eat a vegan diet, and I wear my African garb, and I go into different circles. I go to the African Street Festival, and I go to the drum circle, and I worship my ancestors, and I don't worship God. So I'm woke. And you find a lot of woke people that are very free individually, but they have no more collective freedom or power than an unconscious black person. So I always got to try to explain to black people, there's a big difference between expressing your personal freedom and securing our collective freedom. So when I say a dozen people, there's thousands of conscious black people in Chicago that are living out there. Well, I want to do this, or I believe in this, or I'm gonna do this. And they all stand up and say, I want unity. We need unity. But they don't offer unity, and they're expressing freedom. They're not securing liberation. And when I join organizations or I form organizations myself, that's what's always the linchpin that start. People start feeling like you're impinging. I have people tell me shit like, well, spiritually, I don't know, on an energetic level. And so when the needs of the revolution start to impede against the desire of the conscious black person, organizations start to dissolve. And that's something I'm dealing with after 2 decades on front lines of the struggle, organizing in 3-4 different cities. But you could do a dozen. You got to look at on a local scale. You give me a dozen people. You give me a dozen people that are not there to express their consciousness, but there to secure collective power. We could transform a city in less than a generation. And I say less than a generation. I didn't say less than a month. That's another thing. Revolution is a generational thing. A lot of people want to see something tomorrow. A lot of black folks want freedom by the next election. And you get groups like the ADOS to say, wait, we can get you reparations in 8 months. That's snake oil. That's prosperity politics. And prosperity politics is just as dysfunctional and dangerous as prosperity gospel. I had Sheun Kuti on the radio. Zamaya says, hoping one day you bring Sheun Kuti on the radio. I actually, if you go search the Bro.Diallo archives, I did have Sheun Kuti on the air. And if he ever makes his way back to Chicago, or if I ever go to Nigeria, we will definitely get Sheun back on the air. And holla at Sheun. Tell him Bro.Diallo, when you're ready. He's been on the air one time. It was a wonderful discussion interview. And any other time in the future, love to Sheun. What else we got? And I'm jumping through the questions, so bear with me. Do you have any thoughts on the coup in Bolivia? I see there's a lack of coverage in S. Yeah, the Bolivian coup was a reorientation of the PNAC. The Bolivarian Revolution, which was started by Hugo Chavez and the Chavistas and spread to Brazil, Bolivia, of course, it was fueled and a lot of times armed and funded by Castro, and after Castro, post-Castro, Cuba. But anyway, I think it is an atrocity. It is something that any African, Indian in the world should stand against the Bolivarian, and we should support the native Bolivarians and the Afro-Bolivarians, for lack of a better word, in their opposition to it. It was a coup d'etat. The overthrow was a right-wing white nationalist overthrow supported by the Trump administration. But before the Trump administration, Obama was involved in overthrowing the Bolivarian Revolution. Obama participated in the overthrow of Honduras and the subversion of Lula da Silva and the attempted assassination and what I believe to be the successful assassination of Hugo Chavez. So Trump is just carrying out what really started with the first George W. Bush. And what happened with all of that shit is, in 2000, with the beginning of the War on Terror, the United States shunted all of its imperial focus and imperial resources to the Middle East. And when the Middle East, when Latin America and Central America saw this, they said, shit, white daddy's over in the Middle East. So while white daddy's in the Middle East, while we're here on the Western Hemisphere, we can get free because all of his resources, he's distracted. And then after the War on Terror, dragged to it is pretty much in a stalemate. In the Middle Eastern, the white Middle Eastern agenda has been fought to a stalemate because of the valiant efforts of the Iraqi insurgents, the Taliban, and other forces in the Middle East, with the help and funding and training of Russian forces, and Iran and Russia, and to a lesser extent North Korea, brought them to a stalemate. And when they were at a stalemate there, they looked over to the right and were like, damn, we're at a stalemate in the Middle East, and Latin America is totally off the reservation. Pun intended. So then they reoriented their resources and their focus and their intelligence agencies back to the Middle East, to bring the Middle East back to heel. Once they're done with the color revolution in the Middle East, they're going to reorient back to the Middle East and try to break that stalemate. But remember, Che Guevara said, we need to force the imperialists to fight us on multiple fronts. So as there's a stalemate in the Middle East, and there's a reassertion of power in Latin and Central America, the Caribbean should be rising up. Haiti should be joined. Haiti's doing all the fucking work. Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Panama, what they call Grenada, all of them. Honduras and Haiti's doing all the work there. Guyana, step up. And Africa should be blaze. and be up in full uprising. And Southeast Asia, Vietnam, it's time. Vietnam War 2.0. Because they're barely holding Latin America and the Middle East together. And now they also got a lot of people in Western Europe are back to flirting with socialism. They are very vulnerable right now. You're not getting this in the media, but the whole world is uprising. There's like 4 regions across the world that are not pulling their weight. The Caribbean, Sub-Saharan Africa, the United States, black people here. We trying to join the empire. We trying to get a buy-in to the empire through ADOS. If that was it, this shit would collapse tomorrow, and they know it. That's why they got all these UN summits. Bilderberg, they're scared. That's why fucking Bloomberg is like, fuck it, I'll run. Biden was supposed to shore up the empire. Now Bloomberg's in it. But we don't watch them strategically. We just watch them. We look at their surface actions. So anyway, the Bolivarian coup d'etat, the jury's not out on that. The indigenous people and the leftists in Bolivia are fighting. Brazil, the brothers and sisters. And we need to revisit guerrilla warfare, guerrilla campaign, underground campaign. Mexico needs to rise up. Mexico's sleeping. Another sleeping giant. There's 1 million Africans in Mexico. The natives, you saw what happened in Chiapas. They can't stand a massive uprising. Right now, there's so few fires, they can put out fires. And you got some smoldering embers. But if we can get more regions, if Black America rose up tomorrow, it don't even have to be war. It could be an ongoing mass protest campaign. If we did that shit tomorrow, that would inspire the Caribbean. I mean, Africa would follow us. Every time African people in the United States have rose up, Africa has followed us. If we doing Black Panthers, they doing fucking decolonization and vice versa. But they got enough of us still sleeping where they can try to put out these fires before they spread. Adolfo said, I understand socialist and other political radical opposition and imperial intervention in places such as Venezuela. However, why is there a lack of political critique of these governments? I don't see that. I see a lot of people who support the Chavistas that are very critical. People talk about how Hugo Chavez, there is plenty of writings and plenty of analysis about how Hugo Chavez made himself vulnerable because he was relying too much on petrol. And he did not use his resources to diversify their economy. That was a petrol economy. And all the crack I had to do was pull the rug out from under the petrol or have the Saudis flood the market with cheap, sweet crude to up. So I don't think there's a lack of political critique. If you watch the Bro.Diallo show, I critique. Even though just because I support their cause does not mean they're above critique. So I just don't see that from the news sources. Like there's no critique of anything in corporate media. But if you follow like Global Research News Hour, if you follow Max Blumenthal, if you follow Richard Wolff, the communist radical economist, if you follow them, they people are very critical. But I don't criticize them to tear them down. I criticize it. Iron sharpens iron because I want them to refine. But I just don't think that there's a lack of critique. There is a lack of understanding, but you're not going to find any critique of anything, of any government in the corporate media. I think if you look at more of the progressive, leftist, and alternative media, you will find that critique. Can I talk more about the color revolution? Okay, the color revolution, in case you don't know, are part of the Project for a New American Century. What the color revolution are basically proxy wars. It's basically the U.S. military and U.S. intelligence agencies finding elements within countries like Georgia, not the state of Georgia, but the country of Georgia in Eastern Europe, the Ukraine, even places like Yemen, Egypt, the so-called Arab Spring. Is the United States basically sending weapons, money, and giving media support to elements within a country to rise up to overthrow that country. And then they turn around and say, look at these people fighting for democracy. When they're not fighting for democracy, They're actually fighting for U.S. imperial interests. It is too risky for the U.S. to insert their own troops into a country. So what they do is they come into a community and find a discontent, the Kurds, or they find a discontent minority, they find organized crimes or gangs, they find minority party politicians, right-wing politicians, and they give them funding, training, and media support and weapons to have them go up and do an internal grassroots uprising against their oppressive government and claim they are democracy fighters. And those are proxy wars. And they do it all over. In fact, ADOS is a color revolution. So that's basically what. So a lot of times you look at Hong Kong, you look at Ukraine, and you say, oh, people are fighting democracy and democracy to Ukraine. Those are right-wing fascists. That was a color revolution. You notice they had the Arab Spring and all these Arab people up fighting for there. And then you go look at Yemen, you go look at Egypt, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought they had a revolution, and now they're under right-wing dictatorships, military dictatorship. That was a color revolution. So a lot of times people hear like Venezuela, and then you see the people marching in Venezuela for democracy. When they're not fighting for democracy, they're looking to reinstitutionalize neo-colonial capitalism and overthrow the leftist government. So that's what the United States is going to and start these color revolutions. And they're even doing it in their allied countries, in Great Britain and in France, the Yellow Vest revolution. They're going to all these countries. And in France, people are protesting the government when all the problems that they're protesting were not created by the government, they were created by private industry. And that's everywhere you look. Right now, in Taiwan, everything that people are protesting against, all their problems were caused by the capitalists, not by the government. And even the government is captured and often controlled by the capitalists. A lot of shit we complain about. Black people, oh, the government, the Democrats don't do shit anymore. But you never hear black people, they talk about taxation. You never hear people talk about profit. Your real money gets stolen from you before even Uncle Sam touched your money. The fucking company you work for takes your labor and takes the profit from your labor, takes the material from your labor. Profit is theft. You always hear taxation is theft. Oh, I hate these taxes. And the company can announce $1 trillion profits. Jeff Bezos made all this profit. And Jeff Bezos ain't delivered one fucking package. Fucking Uber makes billions of dollars. And the Uber execs ain't drove one body, no person, one block. But we mad about taxes. And we ain't mad about profit. Profit is, every profit a company makes is money they should have paid you. You can't generate profits unless you're underpaying your employees. So basically, colored revolutions are proxy wars that Western empires use to foment destabilize governments so that they can bring in. Look at all the revolutions that were supposed to fight for democracy or overthrow a dictator, and they end up installing a dictator. That happened in the Ukraine. Ukraine overthrew Russian sympathizers to put in neo-fascists and neo-Nazis into power. That was a color revolution. Right now, the anti-Maduro Venezuelan protesters, that's a color revolution. Even in France, they got the France people fighting against the government when they should be fighting against the business and the upper class. So I hope that was detailed, because I have to wrap up here. What's that? All right. I have to see a notification. Okay. Anyway, I hope that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I'll go into more detail on the Bro.Diallo show about these color revolutions. But I just kind of, it's another branch of PNAC, the Project for a New American Century. And they don't call it PNAC anymore because under Bush and Obama, PNAC got a really bad name. It's like propaganda. Nobody claims propaganda. Propaganda is more intense now. It used to be propaganda was openly used by the government, and the government admitted to doing propaganda and having propaganda campaigns. But even though they don't call it, I forgot the new name for the PNAC, but it's all PNAC, Project for a New American Century, or Full Spectrum Dominance, or the 1,000 Points of Life. They have a lot of names, but it's the same agenda that came after the fall of the Soviet Union. Chris Young's like, what are your favorite revolutionary black movies? Well, they're not all black, but they're all revolutionary. Of course, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. There's another movie called Quiet Storm out of Africa. Sankofa, which isn't really revolutionary, but I really love that. There's another book called Sarah Unya, which is a wonderful movie about an African warrior princess fighting against Arab, and then later. Remember, the reason why the European colonizers were so successful is because Africans were fighting a two-pronged war at that time. They were fighting Arab colonizers from the north and European colonizers from the west and the south. So it was what's called a pincer movement. So that's why they were so. If we were able to just fight the Arab Muslims or just fight the Europeans, we'd have whooped the shit out of them. And so Sarah Unya kind of tells that story. The Battle of Algiers, another one. There's another book called Spirit of the Simmerhorn, which is an animated DreamWorks movie. Revolutionary. Wonderful movie. Kirikou and the Sorceress. There's a lot of others. I actually had a whole album of Rev. Let me pull them up. That are such good movies. And we should do like radical or revolutionary movie screenings, because they're now the revolutionary aesthetic in cinema has been co-opted by the black bourgeoisie. So they're making black movies with radical undertones and a black radical aesthetic, but it's actually a colonialist or pro-capitalist theme, like the Black Panther. Or instead of promoting radical collectivism, they're promoting militant individualism. So in that, I think we should start showing actual radical cinema. And now it's a little harder to even make radical movies because, here we go, real revolution. So I said Battle of Algiers. I'm going to try to give a comprehensive list. Okay. Quilombo. Woo, I can't believe I left. Quilombo, Sarah Unya, and I'm going to share this list. It's a short list. The Planet of the Apes. Ants. With Woody Allen. Ants is a radical movie. Romero, about liberation theology. But I'll share this little link here. It's a short little... I haven't seen Captain State, but I'll check it out. I think that's on YouTube. But you can follow this link here, which is a short list of the movies. The Bolivarian Diet. Guiline. Goodbye, Uncle Tom is like a pseudo documentary, but it's very interesting. But it's more sensationalist than academic. But Chris, just follow that link below, and that'll be probably my top list. There's so many overlooked projects. All right, let's get one more question before we head out. Let me go back and see what I missed. Again, if you stop making this about Kaepernick, this ain't got very little. Any of them ball chasers could have took the knee. It doesn't matter who did it. That's not what's relevant here. But like I said, if you can put all the focus and weight on Kaepernick, that takes the weight off of you. I think that's it. I don't have any new questions. Oh yeah, Ants. I like Ants. And you can watch those movies with your cheering. Also, many Africans see Kagame's Rwanda as a model, but some people claim Kagame is a scam. Okay, yeah, let's deal with this and then we'll bounce. African-Russian summit. No, I don't think there should be an African-Russian summit, because anytime you have a summit with unequal partners, then it's not a true negotiation. I think there should be an Africa summit. I think African countries, I don't support an African. That's all. I don't think Africa should enter into a summit with Russia. Russia has always been, Russia represents Russia interest. I think there should be an Africa summit. I would support Kenya Nigeria summit. I would support a South Africa um, Ghana summit before I support an African Russian summit, because number one, there is really no African formula. There is no unified nation or unified agenda between African countries. So before we can come together, I would support an African diaspora summit before I do African Russia summit. What's another? Kagame's Rwanda. Topo Uganda, Congolese. I don't think Kagame. I think Kagame is very good, like Obama, at playing black people as coming off as being pro-black with his little symbolic acts and his trade assertions. But I think ultimately Kagame is a sinister figure. I think he is in the service to the imperialists. He was very close and cozy with Obama, remember. And yes, a lot of the ongoing conflict in the Congo was carried out, and destabilization was carried out. Well, Uganda also working with Rwanda to destabilize and to pinch off territory from the Congo. So yeah, it kind of saddens me that so many people keep falling for the fucking okie doke. Same thing that Mobutu did. Mobutu pretended, and Jomo Kenyatta, many black African leaders, or not even them. You come to the Caribbean, you look at Papa Doc and Baby Doc Duvalier. There are a lot of black leaders who profess to have black people's interests at heart and to do militant. They even profess to be anti-imperialist or just anti-white. But when you look at behind the curtain and you look at the wizard, you'll see that Kagame is a capitalist. He is more interested in enriching himself, but he understands how to play, especially in this era of social media. It used to be a dictator or an individual commit an atrocity or do an atrocious act, and it would take months to spread, but now it's instant. So in the era of social media, he says a lot of the right shit. He carries himself in a very militant way, but Kagame is a tyrant. He is a tribalist, and he is an agent of destabilization, and he works more in the interest of the Western empires than he does in the interest of the Rwandan people or Africa in general. So no, I don't support Kagame, and I'm really sorry that people keep falling for his hustle. Can Ghana's year of return be considered Pan-African despite its only focus on African Americans and not Afro-Brazilians? Yeah, it is Pan-Africanism, but I see that. I don't think it's. I didn't know that it was only focused on African Americans. I haven't seen that. Is it focused? I'd have to look into that aspect of it, because I know the very concept of Pan-Africanism came out of the Caribbean. The very concept came out of it. And Brazil right now is going through an awakening. Like Afro-Brazilians for a long time, as by and large, they're kind of going through the same evolution that Black Americans did in the 60s. Like the Black awakening, the Black consciousness, Black is Beautiful movement. For a long time, like the Dominican Republic and other Black people, especially in Latin American countries, because Latin America didn't so strictly enforce the color line in the same way, or color-based politics like they did in the United States. So I see that Black Brazil is awakening to Pan-Africanism, but I've never seen any Pan-African movement, truly Pan-African movement, that excluded or tried to isolate the Caribbean, because African Americans learned Pan-Africanism from Africans in the Caribbean. So, even like Eric Williams, of course, Marcus Garvey, and all of them came out of the Caribbean. And so I still think the year of return is a manifestation of Pan-Africanism. I think it should go, but I don't see that it's excluding Africans from other parts of the world. Maybe you could send me some information about how. I know it's focused on, but this is something that Africans in the United States have been cultivating and working on for quite some time, where Afro-Brazilians are new to it. I think we should open up and make, and a lot of Black Americans have gone to Brazil to exploit and participate in the exploitation of Brazil and the Caribbean, which I don't like. A lot of Black Americans use the Yankee dollar to go to the Caribbean to act and live and function like white people do, using it as a campground or a party ground as opposed to an exploited nation. So that's something else we should deal with. but I would have to look into that. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. I really appreciate everyone joining in for this session. I'm sorry I missed y'all over the last week. Shout out to Chauncey. Thanks to everyone that made a contribution. It really, really, really helps. But I'll try to do these sessions a little more regularly. I know I do these pretty infrequently, and I really enjoy them, really knowing what people want to know specifically. I had a little extra time this evening. But the Bro.Diallo show will be live this Monday. And like I said, we're going to be going live, and there should be no hiccups all the way into Jesus' birthday. We should have Bro.Diallo broadcast. Thank you for tuning in. And sign out. I got to play us out. And I'll try to work on this microphone. Oh, and also support the Patreon. Please subscribe to my YouTube. Please share this with your friends, allies, lovers, and enemies. Help get the word out. Help promote. I just met with Brother Chauncey. We got another meeting this Tuesday. We're really trying to build up radical, independent, Pan-African media. We got a lot of ideas. We just need some support and resources to bring them to fruition, cooperatively, collectively, communally. So let me say that. And now it's gonna play out. Share the show, y'all.